Hi, I'm Omar at Top 5 E-Bikes, and this is a full review of Aventon's brand new bike, the Aventure.2. If you haven't subscribed to Top 5 E-Bikes, what are you doing? Subscribe! If you're a subscriber of Top 5 E-Bikes, or you've watched one of our other reviews, you know the drill. What we're going to go through in this video is we're going to talk about the specs of the Aventure.2. We're going to talk about the difference between this one and the old school Adventure. And then we're gonna talk about our test rides and share some of the information there. And then we'll finally talk about the things that we didn't like, and our final thoughts. All right, let's get into the specs of the Aventure.2. Price-wise, it's $18.99, which, by the way, right now when I'm filming this, you can still get the old version of the Aventure for $14.99. Now let's talk about the motor. The motor hasn't changed. It's a 750 watt sustained, 1130 watt peak, 48 volt brushless rear hub motor, and I think it has 85 newton meters of torque because it didn't change. It's not listed, but that was the amount that the old one had. It does come with a torque sensor. You can't really see it here, even though I'm showing you the part of the bike where the sensor actually sits. As far as the battery, that hasn't changed either. It's a 48 volt 15 amp hour, so it's 720 watt hours. It is integrated to the frame. It's removable, although on this side of the bike you can't see it. So now I'll show you the side where you can actually see the battery, and you can actually put in the key and you can remove the battery and you can see that it's integrated. Charge time on this e-bike is 5 hours. That's according to Aventon. The weight is 77 pounds, and with that heavy weight you do get quite a bit of max load, which is 400 pounds total on this e-bike. So brake-wise, the Aventure.2 comes with Tektro hydraulic brakes, which is nice. You need the stopping power with this type of bike just because of the high performance. And when it comes to the tires, it comes with 26 inch by 4 inch tires, which is typical of this category again. The old version had Kenda Crusades. These aren't listed as Kenda Crusades, but they look pretty similar in their knobby. As far as the LCD, it's the same LCD screen that you had on the previous version, same functions. The controller, though, is a little bit different, and that just has to do with the cadence sensor, I believe, but you have the same functions, it's just a little bit different. The grips are the same as the previous version as well. Now, one difference between this bike and the other one is there was a downgrade from the Shimano Acera to Shimano Altus drivetrain, so the derailleur is a little bit different. Now, it is a step down, and although you should be using gears more because it's a torque sensor, I didn't really notice much of a difference. This model also does come with a rear rack, which is super nice, and it does come with 2 integrated rear lights, which include turn signals. I did want to spend some time talking about the differences between the old Adventure and this new Adventure.2. So I'm going to start off with the areas of the bike where there are no changes. So the first one is the motor. So the motor didn't change. It's still a 750 watt sustained, 1130 peak motor. So no changes there. There's also no changes with the battery. So the battery is still a 48 volt 15 amp hour battery, which makes it a 720 watt hour battery. The third one, or the third thing that hasn't changed, are the brakes. So you still have Tektro hydraulic brakes. And then you have the tire size. That didn't change. So we still have the same spec tire. It looks like a little bit of a different Kenda tire, but it's still, for people riding, it's going to be the same experience. The suspension also didn't change, although there is a slight difference in that the old version was not branded, so it was a Zoom suspension. This one is the same exact specs. It looks like the same suspension, except that this time it's branded to Aventon. Now let's talk about the changes. This is really, I think, what's interesting for people. The first one is that the new version, the Adventure.2, comes with a torque sensor versus a cadence sensor, which is what the old bike had. And that makes a huge difference in terms of riding style. It could be a huge difference in terms of your battery range, because the torque sensor could work more efficiently. It also means that you're going to work a little bit harder as you're riding the bike, but it's also a more natural cycling experience. The second one is that they made a change with the pedal assist level. So it used to be pedal assist level 1 through 5. Now it's 4 different levels, which are Eco, Tour, Sport, and Turbo. Another change that they made, which we really liked, and we'll talk about this later, is that there are now 2 integrated rear lights. In the old version, there was only 1. Also, these come with turn signals, so that's the other big change. Another change is that this version comes with a rear rack. The old version didn't come with the rack, so you had to buy one. We had to buy one. This one actually comes included in this price of $18.99. And then the last one, which I'm going to mention, is that this new version comes with this Shimano Altus derailleur. The old version came with the Acera. Acera was actually a better derailleur as far as the Shimano hierarchy of derailleurs. I didn't really notice much of a difference. I'm shifting more now that I'm using the Aventure.2 versus the old version, but I didn't really notice any differences. So those are the major changes, and then also the areas of the bike where there were no changes. All right, so now that we talked about the specs of the Aventure.2 and we told you the differences between this one and the original Adventure, let's talk about the test rides. All right, let's talk about the test rides. I'm going to start off with the torque sensor and the feel of this bike, which is one of the main features of this new Aventure.2. I think what's really great is, and mind you, I hadn't ridden a torque sensor rear hub in a while, but it's kind of nice to ride. So it's really natural. So if you're used to riding a regular e-bike or a regular bike, then this is really similar to that style of riding. It's not pushy, it's not jumpy like a cadence sensor can be. So I think as far as your experience riding this type of sensor, it's great. So again, it feels really natural when you're riding a torque sensor. What's really great about a torque sensor versus a cadence sensor is the more you push, the faster the motor goes. So the motor is able to sense the amount of pressure that you're putting on the pedals, and then it adjusts, which is kind of nice, which is very unlike a cadence sensor. So that's one of the main differences. But I think it leads to a very natural feel, like a typical cycling feel, rather than a cadence sensor, which can push you and can feel jumpy. I also think a torque sensor is good for someone who's a novice e-bike rider, because it's just more of a natural cycling feel. And I think there are people that get scared with the cadence sensor because it just feels too pushy, jumpy. So I think it's better for a novice rider. I also think it's good for people that want more of a workout or a cycling feel, because it's more natural. So in my book, the torque sensor has been great. This particular torque sensor feels really natural, because I've ridden some other ones where you can definitely feel the push a little bit, but not so much with this one. So Aventon did a really good job in this upgrade from the cadence sensor to the torque sensor. So when it comes to the pedal assist levels, Aventon made a change in this one compared to all their other e-bikes, or at least the ones that have cadence sensors, which is, instead of having a pedal assist level 1 through 5, they have names. So I'm in Eco right now, and then you go from Eco to Tour, and then you have Sport, and then you have Turbo. So I think it's Turbo, yeah. So those are the 4 pedal assist levels. A little bit different than how a cadence sensor pedal assist level works, in that usually with the cadence sensor, you just feel it. You know, pedal assist level might be set to 1, say, might be set to 10 miles, and 2 might be set to 13, and so forth. And with this one, it's a little bit different. And I think what's really great, again, about the torque sensor is, because the motor takes how much pressure you're putting on the pedals to then convert that into the speed, you can actually just go really slow in any of these levels, and the bike will go slow. And then if you push hard, it'll go fast. So again, pretty big difference in that the 1 through 5 versus these 4 levels that they have now. But again, I think it makes sense just with having a torque sensor. And the final thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to the test rides is that this is a fat tire e-bike, 4-inch fat tires like we talked about in the specs. this is best for use for on some type of dirt trail. And that's really where you're gonna have a lot of fun. So if you're taking it on some type of dirt trail, light trail, rather than on a paved road, like right now I'm on a paved road, but you know, you can ride it on a paved road just like I am right now, but it's gonna be a lot of fun if you take it on a dirt trail. So now let's talk about the things that we didn't like and we liked. So the first thing I didn't like was the weight. It's the same weight as the previous version. Again, this bike didn't really change. It's the same frame, same battery, same motor, same tires. So it makes sense that the weight stayed the same, but I think with an upgrade, it would have been nice if there was a little bit less weight. 77 pounds is on par with other top fat tire e-bikes, but again, it's just kind of a heavy bike. So it's just something for people to know, and I think it's a big negative. The second big negative is that the battery didn't change. So I guess that's good that it's the same battery, but I would have expected, more watt hours out of a battery in an upgraded bike, and this battery stayed the same. And that was one of the negatives in our last, when we reviewed the original Adventure. So again, to me, it's a big negative. You have other e-bikes in this category that have big batteries, like the Ariel Kepler, for example, and the Magicycle. So those e-bikes have bigger batteries. And so again, this is a big negative for me. And the last negative to me was a big annoyance. And you can't really see it here, but we actually scraped the pedals. You might be able to see it. Scraped the pedals on both sides. We're around 60 miles that we've ridden this e-bike right now. And numerous times I've scraped the pedal because the pedals are too low. So the lowest level of the pedal is too low. So when you're turning, you can actually scrape the road. And that was an issue with the last Adventure. And again, because it's the same frame and this is the step through, the same thing is happening. So to me, it was just at times when I was turning, I had to adjust and I had to think about it. Initially, it kind of scared me because I was like, oh, wow. I scraped when I turned, and it wasn't a super tight turn. It was just a normal turn. So again, for me, that was a big negative. All right, so it wasn't all negative. So let me get into the things that I really liked about the Adventure.2. I think the first thing to note, even though the motor did not change, it's the same motor, it's still more than enough power. It's 750 watts. You have quite a bit of torque, and you see this in some of the clips, and I'll upload some here, where I was going up a hill, pretty steep hill. So more than enough power with this motor. And so although they didn't change it, I don't think that you really need more than 750 watts with the fat tire e-bike. The second thing I really liked is that it has a torque sensor. So I talked about that in the test ride portion of this video. It's just really fun to ride with the torque sensor, much more fun than a cadence sensor. And I feel like you get more of a workout if that's what you want. You can obviously use the throttle, you can use the highest level of pedal assist level, so it can help you more, but it's just more natural when you're pedaling. You don't feel jumpiness or pushiness in between levels, because a lot of times with cadence sensors, when you're switching from pedal assist level 1 to 2, you can feel it and you can feel a push. And some people that are new to e-bikes, it really scares them, and they don't feel safe because of the burst of power that's coming from the cadence sensor. So I think for me, torque sensor is the way to go. I've really enjoyed riding torque sensors, really enjoyed the one from Adventure because it's really natural and there's not much of a transition in between. You don't feel the push in between pedal assist, the Eco, and for example, if you go to Tour or Sport or Turbo. The next thing I really liked about the Adventure.2 was one of the things I liked about the original one, and it's just the look and how good of a job they did with the body. So again, just like the original, you can't really tell where the weld jobs are. They did a really good job. They did a good job with the branding, where you see the logo all over. So they kept that piece of the original Adventure, which was great. So it's one of the things I really liked. Another thing I really liked are just the different options in the type of frames that they have and the frame sizes and colors. So this is a step through, and there's also a step over. So there's two different frame types. And there's two sizes for each frame type. So this is a regular, and there's also a large. So if you're a little bit taller, you would probably want a large. I'm 5'11", by the way. And then there's two different colors for each of the frame types. This is the cobalt blue, which is amazing. I'm glad that we were able to get this cobalt blue. But you can check the website for the different colors or the new colors that they have for the Adventure.2. And the last thing I really liked, which I'm glad they fixed this, and this is one of the things I really didn't like with the last version, is that The integrated rear light in the original version only came with one light, so they fixed that. So we have two lights, which is awesome. And the other thing that's kind of cool is that there's turn signals. So I don't know how much you'll get to use those. I normally don't ride at night. I've used them a little bit, but it's kind of nice, a nice feature that they added on. But the main thing is that they added two rear lights. So now that we gave you all the specs on this e-bike, what we liked, what we didn't like, let me close it out for you. The old Adventure is a great e-bike. It's still available. You can get it for $14.99, which is a great price for that bike. But thankfully, Aventon just upgraded what was a great e-bike. And what they did was they focused on the rider experience, I think, because they added a cadence sensor, which makes the rider experience totally different from a cadence sensor. And then the other piece is they focus on some add-ons that weren't there with the original version. Like now you get a rear rack, you have two rear lights, you have blinkers. So they not only improved the rider experience, but they added some additional items for you to have if you end up buying this e-bike. So all in all, we loved riding the Aventure.2. And if you're in the market for a fat tire e-bike around $2,000, we really recommend this e-bike for you. There are more powerful e-bikes, so e-bikes with a 1,000-watt motor, some e-bikes with a bigger battery, but you're not going to get more value in an e-bike at $18.99 than the Adventure, and we think that it will give you a great riding experience. So let us know what you think, if you have any questions or comments about the Aventure.2, or if you think there are any better fat tire e-bikes. And thanks for watching.